When police were sent to 33-year-old Kaylin Blue's house, they could have never imagined what they would find in her backyard. But before we get started, welcome to True Crime with Maneater. If you love all things true crime, including missing person cases, cold cases, and just the strange happenings of the world, you've come to the right place. Be sure to subscribe and turn on alerts so you never miss video upload. Let's get started. Kaylin Blue was a 33-year-old woman living in Boise, Idaho with her boyfriend, Philip Schwab, who was 35. Kaylin's family would describe her as incredibly passionate and caring and loving and just absolutely radiant. And although she had a minor disability, she never let it hold her back. In fact, she was a really hard worker. She was incredibly responsible and worked at Walgreens, and she really liked her job. And her coworkers actually became really good friends. Kaylin met her boyfriend, Philip, many years ago in Colorado, and the two pretty much instantly hit it off, and from then on were inseparable. And when Philip's father passed away, Kaylin's family would actually take him in and allow him to live with them. But Kaylin's family often worried about her relationship with Philip. Family said that the two often bickered, and sometimes Philip would go on these long Facebook rants, and it was really concerning for them. Family was really quite hesitant about their relationship, but there was nothing they could do about it because, of course, Kaylin is a grown adult and she gets to choose who's in her life. Eventually, the situation just really was not working out anymore. The family really couldn't deal with Philip Schwab, and they asked him to move out of the house. Philip actually decided to move to Idaho Falls with his mother, and Kaylin Blue actually went with him. So she left her family and friends in Denver, Colorado, and moved to Idaho with her boyfriend. And of course, when she moved, she transferred Walgreens store, so she went from the Denver, Colorado store to a new one in Idaho, and quickly she fit in. She loved her job, she met new coworkers, and they quickly became her friends, and she kind of settled into a new life. And although Kaylin had settled into her new life, her family back in Colorado was still worried about her. Her siblings and her parents said that Philip and her bickered often, and he would just post these really erratic things on Facebook that would make them really concerned. One of her siblings would go on to say that he's always been strange. My sister had anxiety, and he would poke and prod at that fact. I hadn't been following him on Facebook for a long time because I've always thought some of his stuff on there is very strange. It was creepy, it was weird, and I couldn't figure out what was going on. Kaylin would actually make a trip back to Colorado to visit with her sister Brittany and her niece Danica. And while she was there, they talked about her love for gardening and growing vegetables, and obviously her job because she really loved her job and her coworkers, and everything seemed fine. Her sister didn't really have any cause to worry, and every minute she was there, she wanted to spend time with her niece. After a great visit with her sister, Kaylin went back home to Idaho, and things seemed to go back to normal. That is, until June 23rd, 2019. On a Monday morning, Kaylin's sister Brittany received a text from Kaylin's coworkers, and Kaylin's coworker was just like, hey, Kaylin never showed up to work today, but she didn't call either. She did a no call, no show, and that just was not like Kaylin whatsoever. If she couldn't come to work, she would let them know as soon as possible. And obviously this alarmed Brittany immediately. She knew that her sister would always show up to work no matter what the circumstances were. So Brittany did what anybody would do in this situation. She started to reach out to anybody that her sister spent any sort of time with. She messaged friends and coworkers, and everybody said the same thing. They hadn't heard from her. So she picked up the phone and called Philip. And Philip would tell Brittany that he has no idea where Kaylin is, that she's missing. Her car was still at the house, but she hadn't been seen. He would just say, I don't know where she is. So Kaylin's sister asked Philip, was she home the night before? And he just said, I don't know. And of course, Brittany at this point is thinking, how would you not know if your own girlfriend was home or not? So Brittany told Philip, hey, I'm calling the cops. I'll let you know when I know something else. Obviously, they need to be involved. And then he just hung up the phone on her. So of course, Brittany thinks this is incredibly strange. I mean, what kind of boyfriend has this reaction when his girlfriend is missing? So Brittany calls the police department and asks for a welfare check. She says, I haven't heard from my sister. She didn't show up for work, and that's really unheard of. And nobody has actually heard from her, which is even more uncommon. She's very much always in touch with her family. She never misses work. We're very nervous about this situation. So of course police are like, yes, we'll go do a welfare check. So police arrived at Philip's house that he shared with his mother. His mother was actually out of town at this point, so it was just him home alone. And when they get to the door, they say, we're the police department. We're looking for your girlfriend, Kaylin. Have you seen her? And ask him a few questions. And he would lead them to the backyard. And as they're going through the house to the backyard, they're noticing quite a bit of blood everywhere. And they're suddenly realizing that this was more serious than a welfare check. And when they arrive outside, they would see a shallow grave grave in a patch of flowers. And there, Kaylin Blue's body was discovered. Obviously, Philip Schwab was arrested at the scene and taken to the police department. And during an interview, he would tell police exactly what happened. And Philip Schwab would actually confess to stabbing Kaylin Blue to death. He would say that in the middle of the night, Kaylin Blue was thrashing around in their bed and accidentally hit him. He would then take a knife from the Scream movie and begin to stab her multiple times. And the autopsy would later reveal that she had a dozen stab wounds across her face, her neck, her chest, just tons and tons of stab wounds that obviously led to her death. It was a violent crime. And the fact that he did it because she accidentally hit him as she was thrashing around in his sleep is really quite scary. But police would uncover some seriously strange evidence as time went on. Philip Schwab took to Facebook and posted some really scary things. One of these Facebook statuses would say, "If stabbing someone is wrong, I don't want to be right." Philip would also text his mother, who wasn't home, she was actually recovering from surgery, and say something even more cryptic. He said, "It's going to be over soon, and I just want to hear you LOL, just a heads up, just us. I'm ready to have fun with you." Again, I'm not sure what that text message meant, but it is pretty strange. I mean, I don't know what he meant by "it's going to be over soon." I assume he meant Kaylin's life, and he just wanted to hear his mom laugh out loud again. So I'm wondering if there were some issues between the trio, between Philip's mother, Philip, and Kaylin. I don't know if there was some stress in the house or if there was fighting, but that seems like a really strange message to send your mother. Police would then realize that Facebook status update came at 6:30 p.m. the night of Kaylin's death, meaning he posted, "If stabbing someone is wrong, I don't want to be right," long before he killed her. Does that mean he had planned to murder her that night? Was it a premeditated crime? And police would note that when Philip took them to the backyard and to that shallow grave, they could still see Kaylin's face sticking out of the ground. And as they're looking at the shallow grave, they can see her face and there's cuts on her face. I mean, he tried to hide the body, but he didn't do a very good job, obviously. And not only would Philip murder his girlfriend, who he had been engaged to apparently for years, he would murder the family dogs and put them in the dumpster. Obviously, there was more than one post the day that he murdered Kaylin, and a couple of them went on to say, "What would I be doing with a shovel, bitch? How to get away with murder? Twice. She deserved quicker. Am I looking like Michael Myers now? LOL." And really, police are flabbergasted by this crime. There's really no motive to it. He murdered her because she accidentally kicked him while she was sleeping. And then he murdered his two family dogs. It just isn't logical. And Philip Schwab didn't have a violent criminal history. He really didn't have a criminal history at all. So it doesn't make sense that he just snapped one day and murdered his girlfriend. And unfortunately, Kaylin's family would learn the horrific news. Their daughter was dead. The family had actually flown into Idaho. They wanted to be there. They didn't know what was happening with their daughter. And then, of course, they found out she was dead, so they wanted to obviously be there to figure out what they could do to help, to investigate. All of those things were just running through their mind. They wanted to get there as quickly as possible. And while they were there, they actually met with Philip Schwab's mother, and she was very remorseful. She apologized profusely for her son. She didn't know what happened. She said she loved Kaylin as well, and she's just so sorry that it happened to this family and that her son would do something like this. She was just so overwhelmed with grief for both parties. Brittany would go on to say that, "I have talked with his mother and his aunt, and they're just destroyed by it. They love my sister so much. My whole family feels really bad for his mother. We're not angry with her. It's not her fault." She would go on to say that she never wants to see Philip Schwab, and after watching his first court appearance, it just left her kind of divided. She wanted to know what was going on in his mind, but she also just didn't think he deserved the attention. She went on to say that, "He can rot in hell. He did horrific things to my poor sister, and I could at least expect for him to look like he was going to cry, but no. There's no emotion in that video. None whatsoever. He didn't seem upset. He just sat there. I don't feel anything for him. He doesn't even feel sorry for what he did. He's been with my sister for 8 years, and he doesn't feel one bit sorry for what he did." And of course, the family is devastated by this loss. They described her as such a sweet and kind soul who just loved everybody and wanted everybody to be happy. It was such a loss for their family. Philip Schwab would plead not guilty to the murder of Kaylin Blue, and obviously as time went on, court documents revealed that Philip Schwab's defense lawyer stated that basically Philip Schwab could not understand the legal process. And his defense attorney said basically due to his disability, he just really didn't understand what he did. And apparently Philip Schwab suffered from DiGeorge syndrome, and this was a disorder caused by a defect in chromosome 22. DiGeorge syndrome is a chromosome disorder that results in poor development of several body systems. It can cause heart defects, poor immune system function, a cleft palate, and low levels of calcium in the blood. So some symptoms of this syndrome include delays in learning to walk or talk. There's other developmental and learning delays, hearing and vision problems, mouth and feeding problems, short stature, frequent infections, bone, spine, or muscle problems, unusual facial features, symptoms. And of course, there's other symptoms. So his lawyer noted that because of this syndrome, one of the symptoms is a learning delay or disability. So Philip's lawyer would actually argue that one of these symptoms of the disease is that developmental delay, which caused difficulties in understanding. So he argued that really Philip didn't understand not even the legal process or what had happened. And apparently people with this disorder are more likely to develop mental health issues. Things like schizophrenia, bipolar, anxiety, depression, those are all very commonly found within this disorder. And because of this disorder, the judge actually allowed Philip to see his mother pretty much on the regular so that she could have these special visits and explain to him what was happening. And the prosecuting attorney declined to actually go after the death penalty in this case because of this disability. But apparently under an Idaho law that was passed in 1982, it basically states that mental health conditions shall not be a defense to any charge of criminal conduct. So basically he couldn't get out of this murder by saying that he had a mental health or learning disability. They also noted that Philip Schwab had an IQ of only 76, and apparently the average IQ score is between 85 and 115. Tristan Blue, which was Kaylin's brother, actually went on to say that Kaylin was a special kind of person, and I don't say that lightly. One thing that Kaylin's traumatic loss has taught me is that everybody grieves differently. Part of my grieving process involves spending many nights over the past couple of years lying awake and asking myself the question I'm sure many of us have asked, which is why. And during his victim impact statement, he'd actually placed some voicemails from his sister. One of them said, "Hey brother, I just sent out your birthday card today. Let me know when you get it. Also, I just wanted to call and see how you're doing. Talk to you later. Bye." And that just goes on to show that she was such a loving person. She really just wanted to stay in contact with her family and her siblings. I mean, she was just so incredibly sweet. Eventually, Philip Schwab was sentenced to a 25-year to life sentence for the murder of Kaylin Blue. Philip also will have to pay $10,000 in fines and $3,000 some odd dollars in restitution. That restitution is going to go to Kaylin's family for funeral costs and for therapy. And really, this is just such a tragic case because Philip Schwab was 35 and he went all of those years without ever being violent and then just apparently snapped out of the blue. And unfortunately, this sweet and lovely person who was just loved by everyone who knew her was his victim, and she didn't even know it. She was sleeping when it happened. It's just an utterly devastating case. But that's it for today, guys. If you like this video or any other video on my channel, be sure to subscribe and turn on alerts so you never miss a video upload. I've been loving your guys' suggestions for cases. It's keeping me really busy, so pop some more in the comments and I'll get to as many of them as possible. See you next time.